The Day Before is an absolute scam of a game. It's horrible. It lasted a whopping 45 whole days before having its servers shut down. It's quite literally a depressing show of how easy it is to completely rob players of their money and time by using convincing enough pre-rendered footage. For those of you that don't know what on earth this cesspool of a product is, let me enlighten you, because the story has holes like Swiss cheese. This pathetic display started with FNTASTIC, the studio behind The Day Before, and don't even get me started on the name. In 2019, they released a game called The Wild 8. Off the bat, it's a decent game, but it wasn't a looker. Of course, it was a relatively small indie title, right? Kind of hard to expect them to make the next Firewatch. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Red flag number 1 of 2000. How is a studio the size of a mosquito's dick going to go from this to this in the span of 3 measly years? That's right, the first announcement trailer they released for The Day Before was in 2021. No major investors, no experience making any sort of zombie game or any AAA blockbuster game ever. Now, if you think this is bad, buckle up, Buttercup. The clown show's about to get good. They had a projected release date of 2022, so they expected us to believe they went from Roblox to The Last of Us in just 4 years, while also not showing much gameplay at all and further delaying the game to 2023. According to the Oompa Loompas over at FNTASTIC, they were apparently behind on the transition of Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5. If I explain it like this, most of you think, oh, that smells like some bullshit, and you'd be correct. But as a community, of course, we took the bait and made the game the most wish-listed one on Steam. This didn't interrupt their flawless development plan of being powered by volunteers in a dream, however, as they kept feeding us the story of this being this massive blockbuster experience while working on it as if it were the next Flappy Bird. They proceeded to delay the game again in January of 2023 by stating that they had issues with quote-unquote trademark disputes. If they had been real, it would have been an issue with keeping their game on Steam, which at this point had dropped to second most wishlisted. It didn't happen, right? But taking into account there was no gameplay of the actual MMO aspect of The Day Before, it seemed like they were just trying to send us on some wild goose chase. In February 2023, guess what happened? They released gameplay footage controlled by the developers, and it looked mostly the same as what we saw in 2021. 10 minutes of a doctored video, and then a 15-minute cooldown timer to show 30 seconds of supposed live gameplay from the devs. I'm no detective, but considering this was supposed to release in November of this year, there was some damning evidence we need to analyze here. Exhibit A. Why is the doctored footage longer than the gameplay? Exhibit B. How did it take you 5 years to show players 30 seconds worth of gameplay? Of course, these questions remained unanswered up until April of 2023. They start the beta, whoop whoop, scammy scam. Then December arrives. Jingle bells, jingle balls, ladies and gentlemen, because damn it did we get slapped across the face with them. IGN rated this a solid 1 out of 10, stating it was unbearable, with Gabriel Moss, the writer behind the review, saying, "The Day Before is easily one of the worst games I've ever played, to the point where I'm afraid to continue running it on my PC." Sure, you could say there are the bones of something coherent here, but even those bones feel splintered and brittle. Its map is lifeless, its enemies are idiotic, its PvP is exploitable mess, its story is pointless, and its progression is downright infuriating. IGN, the kings and queens of giving crappy games way too much credit, was giving this masterpiece a 1. The tragedy. It was almost as tragic as FNTASTIC selling around 201,000 copies, only to have half or more refunded. The horror I felt when I saw our poor little Oompa Loompas having to close down their precious little studio because their con was a financial failure was indescribable, truly. In all seriousness though, of course, I feel bad for the actual devs doing the legwork. They did their best with what they had, weren't paid, and put hours of their lives into a project that was doomed from the get-go. This continues to get worse because they're even sketchier than they seem. Aloysius Lowe, a reporter from Yahoo, went to the offices that FNTASTIC was supposed to be at, and they realized that the address wasn't their studio at all, and they were most likely just using it for their online business. Lowe also digged into financial statements that show no sign of them paying anything to any employee in Singapore, with each of the owners/directors pocketing a smooth 200k each, with over 300k in traveling expenses. While you were wishlisting this garbage on your Steam account, Thing 1 and Thing 2 were sitting on their asses in Hawaii. I don't know if any of you have traveled, but if you have, you'll understand when I say two people need to spend an insane amount of money to reach 300k worth of traveling expenses. They may have needed a couple of business trips, but come on, dude, they weren't nearly important enough to need to travel that often. No one knew them. What business trips could they have possibly needed to do? Not only that, but as a fledgling studio, the least of their concerns are the terrors of flying coach. Alas, this is assuming the Ponzi scheme isn't a Ponzi scheme, and the two buffoons actually give a damn about what they're releasing, which we all know is not the case. An anonymous former FNTASTIC dev even claimed that no one from the dev team knew why they called it an MMO. It was always a third-person shooter with some co-op mechanics. Not one RPG mechanic was implemented. Skills were an idea and they were in the prototype stage, but nothing more. They continued to say, technically speaking, there were no RPG mechanics implemented. There was no possible way to put a lot of people in the world or make the world bigger. From the beginning, the idea was that the servers would be under 100 people. That's not an MMO. No clans, no raids, closed hubs. It's been that way for over 2 years. Anyone who complained too much was kicked off the team. A lot of stupid ideas were implemented, removed, and re-implemented because the brothers thought they knew better than us about what people wanted. A huge amount of time and work was wasted because jobs had to be done and redone. So what can we really make of this shit show? The two brothers behind everything were honestly probably just trying to make a quick buck to overhype an at best horrible game, sell the idea, take the money, and call it a day. I'm no lawyer, but I'm sure there's some steamy lawsuits on the horizon for these fools. And you know what pisses me off more than scammers? Stupid scammers. The kind that even suck at being scammers. You can't do a job right, you have no particularly useful skill, and the one thing you need to be good at to scam, which is not to get caught, you still fail miserably at. Anyway, what do you guys think of this whole situation? Did y'all fall for it? Did you just expect them from the start? What do you think is probably coming to them? Let me know all that fun stuff down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, y'all. Give me a little like. Goodbye.